watching the MVP IT Pro podcast, the only podcast where you enter as an IT Pro and leave an MVP. And now, your hosts, Andy Syrewicze and Rob Corradini. Well, everyone. Andy and Rob here for your next episode of the MVP IT Pro podcast, the only podcast where you enter as an IT Pro and leave an MVP. So again, my name's Andy Syrewicze, and as always, I've got my good friend Rob here. How's it going, my friend?
How are you, Andy?
Hey,
living the dream as usual.
Nice. So it's looking like you're traveling on the road right now. You're not in your usual digs there.
Well, I'm in local travel. We call it the Panera Bread when you don't want to hear animals in the background, right, Andy?
Right. So it's your office away from home there.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. I don't have the convenience sometimes of leaving our different rooms. You know how it rolls.
Oh yeah, definitely. The joys of the home office, that's for sure. I'm very familiar with those, definitely. So
exactly.
Well, hey,
is that your window? Is that your office window at the office? Really, like that?
What's that?
See that office window in the background?
Do
you look out that window quite often?
Occasionally, yeah. But
I've always wondered that.
If I want to look at my neighbor's house, my neighbor's house is maybe 15 feet across the yard there. So
nice. I make that point because I have a window in my office that I hardly look out of.
Right. It can be rainy and you can be staring off into the distance, thinking about all this great new tech that's going to be coming out, on the next couple of months here, right?
Exactly. But that's the point: is look away from the screen once in a while.
Let's
get started.
That's right. Well, speaking of all that new tech, we've got Microsoft Ignite coming up next week, don't we?
Absolutely, and I am extremely excited. I know you are.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, for those that aren't aware, Microsoft Ignite is Microsoft's big annual IT Pro-centered tech conference, basically. I think the last couple of years, they've had around 14, 15, 16,000 people in attendance. Big tech conference. And so while Rob and I have been doing a lot of work prepping for this show, we're going to be doing some recording there on site. We've got all kinds of other content planned while we're there. We haven't had a whole lot of time lately, the last month or two, to get an episode out, have we, Rob? We've kind of been struggling to get the episode out because we've been so busy,
We've been busy with work and life. You know how it rolls.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes it's hard to get these done, but, we're definitely getting back on a cadence, especially when you're getting close to Microsoft Ignite. That's really our big show for us.
Yeah, definitely. So what I figure we do is, being as we've been busy with all this stuff and we got the show coming up next week, it'd be great to just kind of talk about our top 3 can't miss sessions for the show. So we'll spend maybe just a couple minutes on that, telling people about, what we need to see next week and what we think people should see. And then we're going to cut to our interview for the week where we actually had Michael Bender from the crew, who now works at Microsoft on a new team called the Azure Advocacy Team. So that was a really cool interview. Looking forward to that. But first off, I guess let's talk about our can't miss sessions for the Ignite show next week. Rob, why don't we start with you? What are your can't miss sessions?
Oh, well, my can't miss sessions, and I always go with the people that we know give great sessions.
Right.
And I start out with one that we all know and we probably both love is Mark Ruzinovich.
Oh, yeah.
He has a great session on Azure Confidential Computing, and that's a really big subject, especially around virtualization-based security, really making sure that you're properly locking down these environments, all the compliances around these type of things. So I think it's really important to understand these really confidential computing and how it, all these different platforms work, especially around like Azure Gov and stuff of that nature. So that's really one of my top sessions that I've been going to. My next one that I'm really interested in is Azure Kubernetes. As you know, Docker and containerization is becoming enormous and huge these days. And essentially it's kind of like a transitional point to microservices. And, as we get into that point, Kubernetes is becoming really big, and especially on Azure. So it's definitely a session that I'm going to. That's actually done by Brendan Burns. And then my other session, which I know Andy likes a lot, is Jeff Woosley. And what am I going to see and talk about, but I won't go into too much detail, is Server 2019 Deep Dive.
You know,
And it's going to be a great, great session. I know you and I are going to be talking about this a little after Ignite,
yep.
but on a different session, podcast. But absolutely something I'm looking forward to understanding a little bit more in the deep dive of that. Even though we've been, working with these RCs and release candidates and builds over the number of months now.
Yeah, it's been a
it's
while.
always great to see a little bit more. What's stuff that may have not have announced or even been in the builds or stuff of that nature.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, you start to see some of the polish that they're really putting on the product, right? I mean, you look at the release cadence for server, the technical preview over the last month, for example, and I mean, it's like every couple of days there's a new build. I can't hardly keep up with it,
And I've noticed some of I'm one of those people that just are opening dialog boxes and pulling up things left and right. And I've noticed there's even UI changes, being, fit and finished and stuff that's not properly wrapping, stuff like that.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So that's where I'm at with more of the sessions that I can't miss, that are really important to me. Beyond that, I'll probably do a ton more, hit a lot more sessions, but
right.
These are the ones that are really important for me. I think also DevOps this year are becoming really huge.
Oh, yes.
And especially around Azure policy and governance with DevOps. So I think, and it kind of goes along with Mark, Razinovich's session around Azure security.
Right. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Windows Server 2019 deep dive. That almost made my top 3. So, I guess with that's kind of a segue into what my top 3 choices were. And it seems like Wednesday next week is like my session day. That is the day that all the sessions I want to go to are. So, if you're looking for me at the conference, I'm probably in a session room somewhere. That's probably what the chances are. So, my first favorite session from that day, and again, all 3 of mine fall on that day, is Hyper-V to hyperconverge with Cosmos Darwin. So, the whole idea of, you think about how we've historically done Hyper-V, where compute really is separate from storage, right? And now, this whole idea of hyperconverge, Rob, from working at Nutanix, that whole hyperconverged idea is starting to gain a lot more steam now. It's becoming more of a mainstream deployment in the industry. So it's just kind of interesting to see where all of the enhancements in the software-defined data center stack for Microsoft, how that kind of all comes together in 2019 and really enables that hyperconverged infrastructure game. So nice to see the polish and the new changes there. My next one, because I've been spending a lot of time with containers and Kubernetes lately, especially on open source operating systems as well, is Dev to DevOps with Windows Container, and that one is put on by Taylor Brown. So, he kind of owns containers over there at Microsoft. So it's going to be really great to see, what all the new stuff centered around containers is on the Windows Server platform. I think that's really interesting because historically containers have always been an open source thing. Microsoft's been working really hard to get them up and running on Windows and Windows Server these last couple of years. Now you really start to see their vision kind of culminating in this really nice, easy to use package. So really excited to see that one. And then, as always, this is a kind of a mandatory viewing session for me every time I go to Ignite, is PowerShell Unplugged with Jeffrey Snover. You can't go wrong with that one.
I can't believe I didn't say that. But go ahead.
Well, it's mandatory viewing for me. I mean, I've been using PowerShell for, boy, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years now, basically however long it's been out. And, I'm pretty comfortable with it, but I'm amazed at how I always manage to learn something new I didn't know about PowerShell whenever I go to this session. One of my favorite things about PowerShell Unplugged with Jeffrey Snover is he comes up on stage and he starts talking about PowerShell, and typically he doesn't have a slide deck. He has no idea what he's going to talk about. He's just like, oh, well, let's figure out how to do X,
Yeah, he's very on the hip. I've noticed that with Jeff a lot.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he can really...
I was gonna say it's actually, he does it from the standpoint of, let's figure out how to do something, and how would he figure it out? And you know what? I've heard him say multiple times in these sessions is his favorite PowerShell commandlet is get help. Which I agree because I'm human. I have the most terrible memory. Ask my wife. But I always need that. Oh, okay, how do I use this commandlet again? Get help. Okay, well, that tells me all the parameters. I need to see an example, And I've even seen Jeffrey Snover who basically created PowerShell up on stage using that same command in that same way. So I mean, it's not only humbling, but he really sets a good example as to how people who may not have used PowerShell historically, to kind of teach them to say, hey, it's okay to use get help, it's okay.
Well, that's the problem these days, is that we're not so keen to jump in and look for help. We're looking for quick answers, and sometimes that's not the case, especially with PowerShell. Unless you're super proficient in it and doing it constantly, you really need to look at these. It's like anything, any kind of command line language to any extent, right?
Right.
And get help. Kidding me, in Linux, I do it all the time.
Oh, yes.
I'm not as proficient in Linux as I am in PowerShell, and I'm doing it constantly with whatever derivative it happens to be with the help commands, whether it's apt-get or you get wrong, or the yellow commands, etc.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, those are my top three, and they should be good. So I have a couple others throughout the week that I'm gonna go to. We've got some MVP buddies that are putting on some sessions. So Dave Cool has got a couple of good ones, theater sessions that definitely we're gonna want to check out. A couple other guys.
Yeah, Dave has like a really cool sessions. Like he hit a couple this year. I can't remember, right?
Yeah, he's got one about basically experiences with storage spaces direct in the field. I'm pretty sure that was him that had that one. So that should be.
I believe so too.
Yeah, so that'd definitely be a good one to go to. We've got there's a whole bunch of MVP buddies that have great sessions in the theater. It's hard to name off all the ones that do, because there's so many. So.
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, Dave Kowal, he's an MVP out of Canada. He runs MVP Days.
Yep.
He is probably one of the biggest advocates out there for MVP.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Definitely someone to be watching, and including his wife. And I think he'll end up having 10 or 11 MVPs underneath him with all the children.
Right, they're building a little army of MVPs over there.
Exactly. I know Dave will see this and start snickering at me, but okay.
Right.
Yep.
Well, with that, we wanted to keep this episode short today. Should we cut over to our interview? Again, we talked to Michael Bender from Microsoft, who's on this new Azure advocacy team. We talked to him about what this team is, what it does, and kind of what the goal behind it is. So should we take a look, Rob?
Absolutely.
Sounds
cut
good.
To it.
Let's cut over. Well, hey everyone, Andy and Rob here as always, and time for our monthly interview. This time I've got a good friend of mine, Michael Bender, on the show. How's it going, Mike?
Not too bad. How's it going, Andy and Rob?
It's going fantastic.
Yeah, it's going. But we actually are excited to talk to you because you recently went somewhere, and we're excited. So we can get into that, but let's chat with you at this point and understand what you do and a little bit of your history.
Sounds good. Well, for those people...
I know, Andy, you were on a talk on this one, but I didn't.
Hey, not a problem.
I see how the show works. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name's Michael Bender. I am currently a cloud ops advocate at Microsoft. Prior to that, I spent a number of years working at a local community college in Madison, Wisconsin, Madison College, teaching Windows Server, virtualization, PowerShell automation, clouds, some of that sort of stuff. And so my role at Microsoft is a pretty interesting role. So it's based around the concept of advocacy. So many people are familiar with how evangelism works, and mostly evangelism kind of comes out of marketing, and it's really designed to go, hey, here's some cool stuff we really want you to use, now go buy it. My role and the role of my team were all in Azure engineering. So we don't sell anything. The only thing we want you to do is we're basically advocating to the product teams for everybody in our communities. So we're looking to make connections with everybody in the operations space, and that's kind of where we're all focused in on, is the operations space. And we're just looking to connect with people, and if people say they have an issue with something in Azure or perhaps Windows Server and things like that, we can take that feedback directly to Microsoft. And that's actually one of our directives, is we want to engage you so that you can help make our products better, so it's a win-win for everybody. And so that's a little bit different than traditional evangelism has worked. And we're part of it.
It feels like customer success along with evangelism to an extent.
Absolutely. It's based out of there's a bigger group called the Cloud Developer Advocates, or the CDAs, and they've been around for about a year. And if you're familiar with the CDA team, that you know that there's a ton of open source people on there. So you've got people like Scott Cate and John Papa, Jesse Frizzell, and just amazing people in the industry. And the way this kind of advocacy works is, I kind of explained it, it's kind of like open source. That's how open source software works, and it's successful, is that they get the communities to help build the product, and everybody wins. And there's two-way communication there, as opposed to, here's our product, go use our product. If you give us feedback, maybe we'll do something about it. That's not, we're looking to build the best products, and the best people to help us to build those are our customers and the people that are using it on a day-to-day basis to run their businesses and to deliver to their customers.
I really like this new direction that Microsoft is taking, because really I see this team as like the culmination of the direction that Microsoft's been going in. Because I remember years and years ago, the famous quote by a previous Microsoft CEO that said Linux and open source is like cancer. But that's obviously not the sentiment anymore, right? And I love to hear that, because I've said it on the show before. My roots have been in open source, but that's not the case anymore. And now they've applied their stance on open source with the greater community, and it sounds like this part of this team is really a part of that that strategy.
Absolutely. There's I've known a number of people that worked in Microsoft over the years, and there's been a systematic change, and I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but really a cultural change ever since Satya came on board, that there really is this wholesale change in the way of the way that the company runs. And if you look across the board, Microsoft is one of the biggest contributors to many of the open source projects, the big open source projects out there.
Not many people realize that.
Yeah. Not many people realize that, and it's kind of a catch-22. Is we try to get that information out there, but we also don't want to make it be like, hey, we're Microsoft and we're this is what we're doing. We're just trying to the people are just trying to do great things for great products, and to just help out and that sort of thing. So it's pretty cool. The culture.
It's a big job.
Yeah, it's a very, very big job. So the team I'm on it's led by Rick Klaus. So if any of you know Rick,
we know Rick.
Rick's a longtime Microsoft guy. He worked in evangelism for years, and then moved over to Azure engineering and compute under Corey Sanders. And so kind of how this all ended up being, I was the first person hired on my team, the second one to actually start because of some timing. But after about a month, Rick came on the team and actually moved into, he's the manager of our team. So the team that I'm on, the kind of focuses on the Windows infrastructure, core Windows stuff. That's Rick's team, and a number of amazing people that I work with on that team. And he's just put together a powerhouse team, and we're just, we've got a ton of work ahead of us. We've got Ignite coming up.
Yeah.
And just a lot of stuff happening in the background, but really, really some exciting times.
Good point. Is there anything you can share with us coming up, like Server 2019, or anything in Azure that you can share with us right now, that potentially a little sneak peek of what's coming ahead?
Well, most of the cool things that I know about have been released. So if you've been following Jeff Woolsey and the server team and those stuff, that for me is some really big stuff. We had an opportunity when I was out in Redmond a couple of weeks ago. We sat down with Woolsey and Ned Pyle and Sam and
Wow.
and just an amazing meeting. Jeff was just amped. He was so excited to be able to talk to us, and so excited that there were people, that we were here to carry the ops torch. That some of the stuff that they're delivering with Server 2019, like Ned has talked about the server migration stuff, and there's just a number of things. So if you go out, maybe Andy or Rob, you can throw the links to the 2 blog posts that the server teams put out. That's really the best stuff that's out there as far as what's coming with Server 2019, and it's really going to help for those organizations that are trying to figure out this whole hybrid thing. That prior to this, you've got Azure Stack, you've got the public cloud with Azure, you've got people on-prem maybe trying to build their own private cloud. Then you've got organizations that, I'm not really sure what we're going to do. That Server 2019 is really going to deliver on some things that it's going to make it very easy for operations folks to really start taking a look at a hybrid environment with Azure. I think the server migration stuff, things with Azure File Sync, just some really, really cool stuff. And, the Azure AD team's they're always doing a ton of stuff that they're making it really easy for you to be able to secure down your identities, whether it be using MFA or those sorts of things. That just a lot of, really cool stuff. There are a couple things that, I'd like to talk about, but unfortunately I can't. But I can tell you that from a content side, that there's going to be some really cool stuff coming along the way to help us to be able to get information in the hands of our customers, so that to make it easier for them to be able to skill themselves up and to learn about this new journey. Because, I've heard my boss, Jeff Sandquist, my boss, Jeff Sandquist talk about this, and other people talk about this, is that the era that we're in with cloud computing is really the biggest change we've ever gone through. Is you look at personal computing and how that changed the world, and then you went into the mid 2000s, and with virtualization that really changed things. This cloud thing is really something special, something different, and it's a place where it's an opportunity for operations people that have been around for a while to really rebuild themselves or recreate themselves and create a brand new career. But with every opportunity, there's always a downside to it. That because everything's moving so fast, there's an opportunity. If you don't jump on the train and upskill yourself, you could find yourself in 2 years wondering why all of these people that are 10 years younger than you and have 2 years in the industry, why they're getting the job over you.
Right.
Because they grew up in the industry. They grew up in this technology, and they're not burdened by that technical knowledge that we have of having built servers, and it took you 6 weeks to build an application server.
Well, that's the thing, and Andy and I were actually just talking about this, is the 10 reasons around hybrid cloud and why it's important. And, it's speed, agility, compliance, speed to production. Look at that. I mean, it's super fast. And I've always said there's like this perception out there that the cloud will lessen type of jobs around IT, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's more going to be an increase.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I think if a lot of people don't look at history, and they don't. If you look back the last 100 years and you look at the Industrial Revolution and you look at how things have moved, is that 100 years ago, I don't know the exact number, but I know it was north of 80%. Most jobs were in the agricultural industries. That's where most of the jobs are. How many jobs are in ag these days? That things shift, and that I completely agree with you. There's going to be so many opportunities in the cloud, and I think the big thing that that I think scares some people is that some companies will look at this as an opportunity, like some did look at virtualization. This is an opportunity for them to cut costs. Yeah. And that is the red flag for you if you are in that company, that you are in the wrong company. Because good companies are going to realize that the stack of IT work is never going to end. You're never going to get to the bottom of your list. So these automation things, these things with the cloud, these things that you can have somebody else do, that gives you the opportunity to work on the cool stuff, to be able to deliver value to your organizations, to help deliver products to your customers that make your business more successful, and you're inevitably going to be more successful. And that's really what most people I talk to is the vision of where we're going, the whole digital transformation, is that the technology is going to allow us to better do what we do. In IT, we shouldn't be paid for typing in code or, swapping out disks or all of that sort of stuff. We're paid for what's up here, what's in our heads. And this is going to allow most people in the operations field to be able to bring that stuff to the table. And I think for most people, I think that'll be a more enjoyable job than the typical firefighting that most IT pros, operations people have done for a while.
And that's a lot of that is a waste of time and energy. I agree, especially around automation and orchestration to an extent. Because when you do those things, we'll do a simple example. New user onboarding. When you're doing that with automation, you're going to also have compliance, the margin of error for adding those users, for permissions, and et cetera, goes down drastically. So again, I see this as a very good thing.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, the industry has changed, right? And, I every so often, it's almost like an obligatory thing for me that I have to quote Jeffrey Snover at least once in every episode. But one of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard Jeff say is that if you don't like change and you're in IT, you should go become a lumberjack, because being a lumberjack is widely the same as it's been for the last 100 years, right? So, but yeah, I mean, the point is you got to roll with change, and instead of seeing change as a burden, it's an opportunity, right? And I think that's really what we're talking about today.
Absolutely.
So, well, Mike, I know we've been talking about the Azure advocacy group that you're part of, but you're also part of the crew, a very important part of the crew. And I think I've mentioned the crew on the show before, Rob, but it's a group that I'm part of as well. But Mike, can you tell
Andy knows better more than I do about it, so this is an education for me.
Well, Mike, can you tell our viewership what the crew is, what the crew's all about, and what your role is?
Basically, the crew, it's basically a global, I guess user group is a good way to slot it in, but it's more of a global networking group where we have just, hundreds if not thousands of people around the world that basically they just connect together. It's a way for them to be able to share their stories, for them to share their knowledge. Primarily we're on Facebook. We do have a Twitter handle where stuff goes through there, but most of what we do happens on Facebook. And so yep. The beauty of the group is that, like to kind of put it against something I've been doing in my role is we've been looking at places to go. And one of the areas that, we've been talking about is going to Reddit. If any of you, have you been to /sysadmin?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So our group is not like that. So they're
brutal up there.
There's there's very few trolls. There are some people that are matter of fact, but for the most part, it's really professional. People know the community. They understand that, it's a professional community. And so every day I go in there, I see new people posting things about, hey, I'm looking to do this. Having this problem in our organization. We're looking at rolling out Office 365. And then within, a few minutes, people start contributing in there their knowledge and helping people solve problems. And the way I look at it is it's completely free to be in. All we do is, we ask you some questions to join the Facebook group, but, you become a part of the community. And it's really the biggest networking Rolodex you can find that you can't pay for. Because there's
like
people
a mini
from,
LinkedIn.
Yep. There's a ton of people from the Microsoft product groups in there. There's people from Fortune 50, 500, 1,000, small business. So people from every spectrum, every sector are encompassed in here. So it's a great place for people to network. And I know, a lot of people in the group, because I've been around, we've been around for closing on 10 years, 10, 11 years.
Wow.
And a lot of people have developed very close relationship. Andy and I are, we've grown extremely close because through the crew and the MVP program. But a lot of people, they have people go on vacations together because they've become such close friends through the group. And, we always do a meet and greet at Ignite the Sunday before we kick off to give everybody kind of an opportunity to, re-engage with each other. And it's a great way for people to go to this conference that's going to have 20,000+ people.
Right.
That you have a group of people that you can hang out with, that you can go have lunch with, that, hey, you run into somebody in the hall and you can chat with. So it's just a really cool group of people.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite communities that's out there. I should say it is my favorite community that's out there.
Then I have a question. Well, you can answer it after, but I want to know how you join. What's the name of the group on Facebook? Stuff like that.
Well, definitely, yeah. I'll be sure. What we'll do is we'll make sure we get the link to the Facebook group put in the comments below this video. So we'll get that taken care of. And to join, Mike, really, I don't recall there being any requirements. Just, show up and start contributing, basically, correct?
Yep. That's what we look at. There's over 2,000 people in the Facebook group. Do all of them contribute? Probably not. It's, there's in every community you have the percentage that's actively contributing, and then you usually have a large presence of people that are just kind of there to see what's happening and that's going on. And that's perfectly fine. But we're always looking for people to jump in, to share their knowledge and, be able to help some people out. Because in the end, that's what we're all here. That's why we're doing this show. That's why we all do what we do. It's so that we can share our knowledge with other people so that they can be successful.
That sounds good. Well,
exactly. And to be honest with you, I think that's the point, right? Is to help people be successful. I get you want people to contribute, but you also want people to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. Well, gents, I think we are about out of time. Rob, is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I'm just make sure he accepts my invitation because I just sent it over there.
Gotcha. I'll make sure that he does.
Awesome.
And, Mike, is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything else you wanted to cover?
Nope. That's great. Thanks for having me on. It was great chatting with you and, telling you a little bit about our team. And the big thing is people can always connect with me on Twitter is the best. And I'm at Michael Bender on Twitter. And that's the best way to just connect with me. If you have any questions about anything, you need information, what have you, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. We also have a hashtag that our team uses. It's #AZOps. And that's what we're using as a way to get our information out. And we also keep track of that on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. So if you've got a question about something in Azure, or you want to ping us about something, just throw the hashtag on there and somebody will get back to you and try to get you some answers.
Awesome. That sounds good. I'll be sure to put...
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The one caveat I'd like to throw in here, we are not a help desk, so we are not your replacement for Premier support. We're here to advocate for you. We're here to help bring your feedback back to Microsoft so that hopefully it can be actionable. It's to help you find information and that sort of thing. Not that we don't help out people to try to get things moving in the right direction, but depending on what the ask is, we might be like, well, that's a Premier support issue that you definitely want to work through the channels, but if you haven't checked out the documentation, here's some documentation that might help you to answer some of those questions as well. So we try to make sure to steer people to the information that's important for them, but also let them know that we are not the help desk. We're not beer money.
Understood.
Sounds good. No no money-backed SLAs on your team. Got it.
I actually also want to thank you for joining, Mike. This was an education for me on all fronts, to be honest with you, on the Cloud Advocates group, because I'm very excited about that group. It's really kind of taking off.
Awesome. Yeah, we keep hearing that all the time, that people are really excited about it, because I think that the operations community, they haven't been getting the love that they feel like they deserve. So we're hoping to bring the love back to the operations community, and so far everybody's been pretty excited. So that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's good to see it, because like you said, the ops community just hasn't been getting the love the last couple of years. So definitely a nice change there. So, well, gents, I think we're wrapped. I want to thank everyone for watching the interview today, and I will be sure to put all of Mike's contact information again in the links below this video. Be sure to check that out. Other than that, Mike, I want to say thanks again for being on the show today. Really appreciate you having you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Well, hey, Rob, we're back, and that was, again, a great interview. Mike is a great guy to talk to. He never has a lack of anything to say.
You're right, and to be honest with you, we were lucky to get him. You're obviously friends with him for a little while, and we were really lucky to see what he had to say, especially this new group that he's involved with at Azure Advocacy. It's
really neat, especially from the standpoint of you're starting to see Microsoft put a little bit of that focus back on the IT Pro, right? Whereas historically, I think back the last 4 or 5 years, it's been, what's the old Steve Ballmer video? Developers. It's been all developers these last couple of years, which, I can see that, trying to get the cloud up and off the ground and get people making apps for it, all that stuff. But, now there's still us IT pros that we need to wrap our hands around it and kind of, manage that and maintain all that infrastructure. And it's really nice to see that focus come, kind of the pendulum kind of swing back, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny when you were saying developers. But I didn't mean to. You sounded like Ballmer there a little with that excitement in his voice.
I don't think I quite have that level of energy to pull it off. I haven't had enough coffee today to do that.
Yeah, he's definitely on permanent caffeine. But I had to sidetrack on that. But absolutely, it's amazing that how the focus is shifting right now. And I think it's what Mike is doing is awesome. Yeah. And hopefully that team will continue to expand.
Definitely. So looking forward to seeing more from that team in the future. And with that, I think that's pretty much a wrap on our show for today, Rob. So again, for those folks that are watching, if you're going to be at Ignite next week and you want to talk with Rob or myself, feel free to hit us up on Twitter. You see our Twitter handles below this video feed here. So be sure to reach out if you want to have a chat, grab a cup of coffee or a beer or, whatever. We'll be at the show. And
I think they start that around 5 p.m. Isn't that beer hour?
Beer hour, 5, 6 o'clock, Right. Well, with that, hope you enjoyed today's episode. And again, you've been watching the MVP IT Pro podcast, the only podcast where you enter as an IT Pro, leave an MVP. Be sure to stay tuned for future episodes on YouTube and iTunes. And with that, I think that's a wrap, Rob.
All right, we're out of here.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Have a good day.